Okay, so we're just going to read these two short paragraphs again because that's as far as we got. So in the Kuntress on the shiur of Chukos Hagoyim, I'm just going to read in English. It says, see the Sefer Mitzvahs Losa say 30, where the Rambam specifies that the Isra of Chukos Hagoyim is in three areas: hair, garments, and buildings. And he says the same thing with Chukos Hagoyim, Yod Aleph Aleph. One can ask, since the pasuk speaks generally about the prohibition of don't go in the Chukos Hagoyim, where do we learn out that this Isra is specifically in these three topics? Because that was the first question. We're just reviewing. And he says the precise name for these halachos is Hilchos Avodah Zarah v'Chukos Hagoyim. The implication being that there are two sections of these halachos, just like Hilchos Tefilah and Birkas Kohanim, where we gave other examples. In Hilchos Avodah Zarah v'Chukos Hagoyim, there are 51 mitzvahs, but only one mitzvah that's Chukos Hagoy, and its place is in the midst. It only occupies three halachos. That's Yud Aleph, Aleph through Gimel. If so, we need to understand, why does the Rambam call these halachos by this name and not something else like Hilchos Avodah Zarah Uvnavi Sheker or Stam Hilchos Avodah Zarah? That was the second question. That's as far as we got. Okay, new material. Ein Hilchos Chukos Hagoyim Perek Yud Aleph Halacha Daled Ad Perek Yud Beis Halacha Aleph. We're not going to do that. We're gonna look at the first part and then I'll show you what the rest talks about. So in Avodah Zarah Chukos Hagoyim Yud Aleph. Okay, so the first three were about Chukos Hagoy. Then he says, "Im menachashim kagoyim." We do not read omens like the goyim. Shneimar lo tanachashu, and he goes through nichush, omen reading. Then he says, "Kosin is going into a trance, right?" And then he goes into ma'onin, which is the astrology, and then the sleight of hand. And then he goes into chover chaver, which is saying incantations. Then he says, and then also saying Tehillim for the sake. Okay. And he says, Then he says, consulting the dead is in 10. Then consulting an over Yidoni. Then sorcerer or sorceress. And then he says that all these things are. I'm going to read this now because we're going to read this at some point. All these things are false and lies. Okay, and this is what the early Ovdei Avodah Zarah used to fool the goyim of the lands in order to get them to be drawn after them. You guys know who David Blaine is, the magician, right? So his second TV special ever was, he went to some, I don't know if it was in the Amazon or Papua New Guinea. He went to some like tribal area, and he basically did things that would convince them that he's a sorcerer, and then he explained to them how magic works, and you could really see that. That's when I really appreciated how easy it is to use trickery to fool Uvdei Avodah Zarah into that you got some sort of connection with the god, so that's what he's saying that happened. Vein royal Israel, and it is not proper for Jews, Shem chachamim mechukamim, who are wise people, not wizened with a Z, to be drawn after these nothingnesses, and not to even entertain the notion that these things have a benefit. It says, he quotes Bilam here, there's no omen reading in Jacob and no sorcery in Israel, no fortune telling in Israel. Osam El Hamaonim El Kosmim Yishma'u Ve'ata Lokein Nasan Lecha Ad Hashem Elokecha. It says these nations that you're going to be driving out to inherit their land, they listen to the fortune teller, the astrologers and the fortune tellers. Not so has Hashem given to you. Anyone who believes in these things and believes in his heart that they are true and matters of chachma, but the Torah just prohibited them, right? Like the Ramban holds. That's the big machlokus between the Rambam and the Ramban here. The big machlokus is if there's one of the big machlokus. Eno elamin haschalim umachsirei hadas. They are only among the ignorant and those who lack knowledge. Fools are people who lack knowledge. They're included in the women and children whose minds are not mature. But people who are balei chachma and I don't think it means they have the chalos shame isha and katan. Yeah. Okay. The people who are balei chachma utmimei hadas and who are sound in their minds. Yedu brayos beruros shekol elo dvarim she'asra haTorah inan divrei chachma ela tohu v'hevel. They know with clear proofs that all the things that the Torah prohibited are not words of chachma, but they are nothingness and vanity. I'm going to finish reading. That the people who lack mind knowledge are drawn after and uproot all of the ways of truth on their account. Regarding all these, then the Torah warns against these havalim and says you should be whole with Hashem your God, which the Ramban says means also that you shouldn't rely on these sorcerers, even though the Rambam holds that these things are true. Yeah.
So just to be clear, so the Rambam saying that the sorcery things that they're doing to to do whatever they do.
Yeah.
That all of that is fake, but would he agree that there's let's say a fortune teller, maybe someone who just knows how to read people very well.
Right.
Like he would agree that they're still like using chachma in a sense that they're able to like train themselves to be able to pick up on nuances in people's behavior.
It depends on the style of fortune teller, right? Like he does seem to acknowledge that in the Hakdama to the parish of Mishnah, I believe, when he's talking about false Nevi'im, that it is possible for these people to get certain things right, but it's not going to be, there's inaccurate stuff mixed in and they can't get it fully right. So when he's talking about those people, then he might say that it is, that they're actually doing something real, but they're claiming it's magic. But I'm sure the Rambam was aware of actual full charlatans, who are just using trickery and not actually like picking up on anything,
I mean, would it be wrong to say that according to what we're saying, somebody who is like one of these people who just, is very adept at like reading people's, faces and whatever, that would there be anything wrong with like saying that they're doing something real?
So here's the closest thing that I know of in Chazal is there's a principle that says anything kol sheyesh bo refuah ein bo mishum darkei ha'amori. So anything that is medicinal, that actually does refuah is not including darkei ha'amori. And the poskim mefarshim say that like if it is a reliable thing, then it's not chukos aggoim. And Rabbi Joseph Weiss, that's Rabbi C.D. Weiss's father, on Tisha B'Av this year, told me that he asked Rebbe about acupuncture, okay? And, because acupuncture originated in certain beliefs that were predicated, it's very hard to tell with Eastern religions what is what is part of their religion and what's just part of the way that they held that the world worked. But you're dealing with chi, and energy. So Rabbi Weiss asked Rebbe, like, is that darkei ha'amori and chukos aggoim? And Rebbe said, as long as anything that the science supports is not darkei ha'amori, even if people still attach avodah zarah beliefs to it. So that was how Rebbe answered that question. So I assume the same thing here is like, anything that is, that there's scientific data to back up, would not be intrinsically avodah zarah. There still may be questions about like how it's done. For example, I don't think you'd be allowed to go to an acupuncturist who is like praying to Chinese gods and burning incense to the gods as part of the procedure, Yeah. Or or it might say avodah zarah, like, or deriving hana from, it might be any one of those 50. One, yeah.
This question might open up a whole can of worms and it might take us a little off topic, but I think it might also be, I'm not sure. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah, you can ask it. I can decide.
So, I'm not sure if you'll have to cut this from the recording or not. We'll see.
So in that case, let me pause it and then I can always re-ask it on the recording. Okay, so we resume recording now that we got all the Wiccan confessions out of the way. Okay. Yeah, I know. Okay. I'm not naming names. All right. Just say it wasn't a boring question. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. No, the question was asked. Oren asked a question about people who do avodah zarah, do avodah zarah practices like this, not because they believe in it, but because of their whatever, like they psychologically makes them feel better, or it gives them a certain boost, whatever. Or so I said it really is a sugya specific question on each particular type of avodah zarah. Okay, so what does what does the Kuntress say here? He says, if you look at what we just looked at, he says, shahalo inyan pas harosh. Oh, sorry, we didn't look at the 12:1. Okay, 12:1 says, we don't shave the corners of the head like the Ovdei Avodah Zarah and their priests did. Shneimar lo takivu pa'as roshchem. It says don't round off the corners of your head. V'chayav al kol peh upeh. You're chayav on each and every corner. L'fikach hamegaleach shnei tzeda'av. If you shave off your two sides, afilu b'vas achas, even at one time, v'hasra achas, and one hasra lokesh time, you get 2 malchus. Yeah. So the question is, he says, you can ask, shalo inyan pa'as harosh shaykh inyan haser b'chukos hagoyim. Isn't this inyan of shaving the head, isn't that relevant to chukos hagoyim? Right? In other words, he just said chukos hagoyim is hairstyles, right? So shouldn't he put it in? So the question is, why does the Rambam start off in 11:1 through 3 by talking about hairstyles that you're not allowed to do because of the goyim? Then he goes through all these types of sorcery. Then in 12 he talks about hairstyles of goyim. Right? It just put the hairstyle stuff in one parak and then all the omen stuff in the other parak. Right? Makes sense. Okay, good question. All right, next, v'sefer mitzvos losa say lamed, which we read yesterday. Hevi Rambam es divrei Rabbi Meir isur chukos hagoy hu darchei ha'amori. So the Rambam brings down the member of Rabbi Meir who holds that the prohibition of chukos hagoy is ways of the Amorites. V'chein kasav b'seifa sham she'echa min ha'mekoros lemitzvos hu b'tosefta b'Shabbos. So he says one of the sources of this mitzvah is the Tosefta and Shabbos, which lists all the darchei ha'amori. Ayin b'tosefta Shabbos perak zayin, Tosefta aleph ad perak ches. Tosefta Dalad, Demarim B'darchei Ha'amori, it lists all of them. But in all of those, there's only 2 things that are usher because of the chukos hagoyim. The Hainu bluris, Mesaper komi, which are the 2 hairstyles. Kiti Isa b'hilchos chukos hagoyim, Perek Yud Aleph Halacha Aleph. V'yish lahavin she'im haRambam hevi es hatosefta k'makor b'sefer mitzvos rak l'shnei dvarim elu, madua shavak es habavli v'azo l'tosefta. So if the Rambam, so again, the derech of the Rambam in the Sefer Mitzvos is at the end of each mitzvah, he tells you where to find in the Talmud the halachos for that mitzvah. So he says the Tosefta in Shabbos. But if you look through the Tosefta in Shabbos, there's only 2 chukos hagoy things. So if the Rambam is actually trying to tell you where to find the halachos, why does he quote the Tosefta instead of the Bavli? Okay, Havale Lichto Kimakoro, L'Shnei Dvarim as a Gemara B'Avodah Zarah Bava Kama Kidi Isa B'Kesa Mishnah. The halachos are found in Avodah Zarah and Bava Kama, not predominantly the Tosefta, which only has 2 halachos. Okay, so the Rambam has a bad citation seemingly. Okay. Furthermore, Tosefta Sham B'Inyan Haklali Shel Darchei Ha'amori, in all of the matters of the Tosefta there that are in general about Darchei Ha'amori, Ha'Isr Haprati L'Chol Echad V'Echad, except for the particular, so the particular issur for each and every one, except for those 2 hairstyles, is who issur acher v'lo chukos hagoy. They come from another issur, not chukos hagoy. Kagon hatosefta perik zayin tosefta gimel b'shchitas tarnagoles dekara kazachar d'havia midarchei ha'amori. Okay, so there is a case where if if a chicken crows like a rooster, okay, and you shecht it, that's one of the darchei ha'amori, okay? And he says, Isura hu nichush, the issur of that is omen reading, okay? Kiti isa b'hilchos chukos hagoyim, perek yud aleph halacha dad. He brings that down explicitly, that if you shecht your rooster, your chicken that crowed like a rooster because you think it's like bad luck, that's darchei, that's nichush, that's not chukos hagoyim, okay? V'shuv madui hevi haRambam es hatosefta k'makor lechukos hagoyim im hatosefta mayri b'darchei ha'amori sheruban asuros mipnei isurim shonim kagon nichush v'chulei lechukos hagoyim. So similar question, but he's saying if all of the stuff in the Tosefta fits into other isurim in Avodah Zarah, why is the Rambam bringing that as his source for chukos hagoyim? Okay, let's hold on a second. Let me just see where he starts answering it. Oh yeah, could we do 2 more paragraphs? Because that will take us through the end of the questions, and then the answer would be next time. Okay. Okay, Ayin Pirish Mishnayos Avodah Zarah Perak Aleph Mishnah Gimel Shekasav She'in Lokin Al Bluris. So you don't get malchus on having the mohawk, on making the mohawk. Lumas Hilchos Chukos Hagoyim Perak Yud Aleph Halacha Beis Shekasav Behed Yesh Lokin Al Bluris. Okay, so there's a steer between the Pirish Mishnayos and the Mishnah Torah. Okay, do you get malchus on the bluris or not? Okay, V'af She'in Tirutz Ela Lomar Dehadar Be Mimash Kasav Pirish Mishnayos. Even though you can answer. The only answer is that he retracted from the Pirish Mishnayos. Okay, like Mishnah Torah is always his most up-to-date thing. Question is, what's the havamina that you would get malchus on the that you would not, correct? The in lomar the havi lav shein bo ma'aseh. Don't say that it's a lav shein bo ma'aseh. Shari b'tosefta lamdu es ha'isur b'bitui ha'oseh bluris. Okay, so you can't learn that it's a lav shein bo ma'aseh because the Tosefta expresses it by saying one who makes a bluris. Eliezer lomar shein lokin alav mishum lav shebeklalus ki the kasav ha-beis Yosef b'yordei siman kuf ayin ches. So you could answer like the Beis Yosef who says that you don't get malchus on a lav shebeklalus, which we're not going to go into what that is for time's sake. V'imkein yesh lahavin my savar haramam b'ishtani mi lav shebeklalus keheter malchus lebluris b'pirush mishnayos lezesh kasa b'hilchos chukos aggoim she'ena lav shebeklalus. Okay, so if you're going to use this lav shebeklalus answer, then what's the havamina within lav shebeklalus from the pirush mishnayos to the yad? I think best policy is we'll go into looking into that question when he answers it. I don't think it's going to be a big issue here. Okay. One more paragraph. Ayin Yora siman kuf ayin ches ifim aleph through beis shemikorim hu harambam. So Yora kuf ayin ches ifim aleph and beis. Let's just look at that just to see what it is. Presumably, it's going to be the isurim of nichush and stuff. Okay, Tur Shulchan Arach. Kuf ayin ches. I just said. Okay, kuf ayin ches. Fine class.
What's up in Norton?
Yeah.
I'm thinking a Norton joke, but then I was like,
yeah, I was gonna make the same joke. Okay. Yeah. Hilchos Chukos Aggoim. Asur l'lechos b'chukos goy. Ve'in tzarich lomar shelo liksom l'nachash l'onin shekol elu meforashim b'torah. Okay, fine. Same thing with Shulchan Aruch. In chukos holchin b'chukos kochavim. Okay, fine. So the source is the Rambam. Makor l'sif gimel hu Rashi al Gemara Sanhedrin daf tzadi beis amud aleph b'dimas chol deika shlema. Okay, so sif gimel. Do you say the tour? No, just regular idea. So gimel says Misha achal v'shir petitin al shulchano, someone who ate and leaves crumbs on his table, lo yavi pas shlema v'yaniach al shulchan, should not bring a whole piece of bread and leave it on the table. What are we talking about? Okay. Okay, fine. So the source he says is in Rashi on Avodah Zarah Tzadi Beis Amud Aleph. Let's just see if they bring that down here. No. Tzadi Beis Amud Aleph. Sorry about this. Tzadi Beis Amud Aleph. You could definitely feel the pull for Avodah Zarah to speed up the computer. Tzadi Beis Amud Aleph. Wait, that can't. Did I read it wrong? Oh, Sanhedrin, Tzadi Beis Amud Aleph. What do you say?
Sometimes the computer is just tired.
That's a different kind of Avodah Zarah. Okay. Rashi. Do you remember Maskal Shlema? Shlema. Dika Shlema behedya. Shemevi Shlema la'achar sha'achal v'nosin al shulchan ima petitim sheshar demechzik del Shem Avodah Zarah abid hafe. Okay, fine. So he's saying that if you have what do you call crumbs and then you bring a whole loaf and put it on the table, it seems like you're doing it l'shem Avodah Zarah. Okay, so apparently that's Rashi Shita. So the Kuntress says uve'emes halachas petitin al shulchan shayachas l'isuri me'onin b'simen kuf ayin tes. So seemingly the halachos of the petitim is more shayach to me'onin, to lucky and unlucky times in kuf ayin tes kid isa sham b'rama al sif zayin yud zayin. So let's look at kuf ayin tes in the Shulchan Aruch. I should have left it open. I have to see what the parak is about. By the way, just to prevent a chilul al Torah, this is not al Torah's fault. This is my computer's fault. Okay, that is slow. Kuf ayin tes. Which says shalol l'chashef l'onin u'lenachish, and what do you say? The Raman Gimel. You gotta go. Yeah, Yud Zayin. Thanks. Yud Zayin, all the way down. Yura says. So the Shulchan Aruch says Hanogim la'aruch shulchan im mini ma'achal b'leil hamilav omrim shehu lemazal hatino aser. Interesting. Okay. I feel like, is that a thing with, do people do that for Shalom Zachar? People who are accustomed to set the table with types of food on the night of Mila and say that it's for luck for the Tino, that's Aser. I don't know what people do to Shalom Zachar. I've never been.
Shalom Mila, this is Mila. The Lil Mila.
Oh, Lil Mila. Okay, fine. All right. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I get, yeah. Yeah, of Ayin Le'el Sof Simin Kuf Ayin Ches. Okay, so he's saying that basically like halachos about the table setting because of superstitious things would seem to belong in this parak, so much so that the Ramal refers you to the halacha. No, that's not.
I know Minhanim like that.
Oh yeah? Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I also question how specific these things are. Okay, so why does the Rambam, so here's the question, why does the Mechaber bring down the halacha petitin from Rashi when the Rambam and the Tur didn't bring it down? L'toch halachos chukos hagoy, in the halachos of chukos goy, in the etzem shachu l'simin haba, if really it's related to the next siman. A very specific question. Yeah, okay, fine. The earlier questions were more powerful, but B'li Neder, tomorrow we will start to see the answers. And I remember it's quite an epic svara. So stay tuned.
You said epic, my mind just went, it's quite an epic Gilgamesh.